Before the world asks anything from you today, before your phone pulls you into other people's emergencies and other people's opinions, before the noise of deadlines, traffic, messages, and stress tries to decide what kind of day you're going to have, I want you to remember something simple and powerful. Success begins in the mind, not in the calendar, not in the economy, not in perfect circumstances, and not in luck, because long before success shows up in your bank account, your body, your career, your relationships, or your results, it shows up in the way you think, in the way you interpret setbacks, in the way you talk to yourself when nobody is listening, and in the way you choose your next step when you don't feel ready. The truth is, most people spend their lives trying to change everything outside of them while leaving everything inside of them unchanged. And then they wonder why they keep repeating the same cycles, the same mistakes, the same excuses, the same frustration, the same almost progress, because you cannot consistently create a new life with an old mindset. You can't build a future while feeding doubt every morning. You can't build discipline while rehearsing excuses. You can't build confidence while practicing self-disrespect. And you can't build success while your mind is trained to expect failure. The mind is where everything is decided first, and whether you realize it or not, you wake up every day and your brain immediately starts telling a story. It tells a story about who you are, what your life means, what your past says about your future, what you can handle, what you can't handle, what's possible, what's impossible. And most people let that story run automatically. They don't challenge it, they don't edit it, they don't correct it, they don't question it. They just live inside it, and that automatic story becomes the ceiling of their life. If the story says, I'm tired, you live tired. If the story says, nothing ever works out for me, you stop trying. If the story says, I'm not smart enough, you avoid learning. If the story says, I always fail, you hesitate, and hesitation becomes a habit, and habits become outcomes, and outcomes become identity. And then you say, see, I knew it, but you didn't predict your future, you trained it. So this morning, we're not just talking about being positive, we're talking about being powerful, because mindset is not a mood, it is a strategy. It is the internal environment you create that determines whether you respond to life like a builder or react to life like a victim, and that difference decides everything. A victim mindset wakes up and asks, why is this happening to me? And that question creates helplessness, it creates anger, it creates blame, it creates waiting. But a builder mindset wakes up and asks, what can I do about it? And that question creates ownership, and ownership creates action, and action creates progress, because the world doesn't reward your intentions, it rewards your behaviors, and your behaviors are born from your beliefs. Right now, as you listen to this, I want you to check what belief you've been carrying that has been quietly sabotaging you, because sabotage is rarely loud. It doesn't usually show up as a dramatic decision to quit. It shows up as small daily permissions. Permission to hit snooze again, permission to scroll instead of study, permission to eat what you know hurts you, permission to avoid the conversation you need to have, permission to delay the application, permission to not follow through, and every small permission feels harmless, but those harmless permissions add up into a life you didn't mean to live. And then one day you wake up and you feel stuck and you start blaming time, blaming people, blaming the system, blaming the circumstances, but the real issue is that your mind has been negotiating your future away in small moments. Success begins in the mind because your mind is the place where you decide what you will tolerate, and what you tolerate becomes your standard, and your standard becomes your lifestyle. If you tolerate distractions, you get distraction-driven results. If you tolerate inconsistency, you get inconsistent outcomes. If you tolerate negative self-talk, you get anxiety and doubt. If you tolerate comfort over growth, you get regret. But if you raise your mental standards, your life rises with it. Because the moment you decide, I don't do that anymore, is the moment you stop being controlled by impulses and start being led by purpose. And purpose is not a feeling that magically appears. Purpose is built through commitment, through repetition, through choosing what matters over what's easy, and the mind is where that choice begins. Understand this clearly. You are not losing your life in one big mistake. You are losing it in small mental patterns that repeat. And the good news is, you don't have to change everything at once to change your life. You have to change your mental direction, because direction repeated daily becomes destiny. If your mental direction is toward growth, you don't need immediate perfection. You need consistent movement, and consistent movement can rebuild anything. It can rebuild your confidence. It can rebuild your finances. It can rebuild your body. It can rebuild your skills. It can rebuild your relationships. It can rebuild your future. But first, you have to win the morning mentally, because the morning is when your mind is most impressionable, and what you feed it first often becomes the tone of your entire day. Most people wake up and immediately surrender their mind to external input. They grab the phone, they absorb drama, bad news, comparison, other people's lives, and then they wonder why they feel anxious, irritated, and scattered. But of course you feel scattered. You started your day with everyone else's priorities. If success begins in the mind, then your morning must begin with ownership of your mind, because if you don't choose your focus, the world will choose it for you, and the world will choose it based on urgency, not importance. So today, make a decision that before you consume the world, you will create yourself, because creation comes before consumption if you want to be successful. You don't become successful by reacting all day. You become successful by building, and building requires focus. And focus requires a guarded mind. And guarding your mind doesn't mean living in denial. It means being intentional about what you let in, because what you let in shapes what comes out. If you let fear in, you will produce hesitation. If you let comparison in, you will produce insecurity. If you let bitterness in, you will produce self-sabotage. But if you let in truth, discipline, gratitude, and courage, you will produce progress. And you might be thinking, that sounds nice, but my problems are real. And I'm not here to argue with your reality. Your problems may be real, your responsibilities may be heavy, your stress may be valid, your past may be painful, your delays may be frustrating, your environment may be challenging, but here is what's also real. Your mind is either making your problems heavier or making you stronger, and you get to decide which one. A strong mind doesn't mean you don't feel tired, it means you don't live tired. It doesn't mean you never feel discouraged. It means you don't build a home in discouragement. It doesn't mean you never doubt. It means doubt doesn't get the final vote, because the final vote belongs to your actions. And actions can be disciplined even when emotions are messy. That's why success begins in the mind, because the mind is where discipline is born, and discipline is what separates potential from results. Potential is common. Everybody has some, but discipline is rare, and discipline starts with mental honesty. This is what I want. This is what it costs, and I'm willing to pay that cost daily, because you can't want the reward and refuse the routine. You can't want transformation and avoid repetition. You can't want a new life and keep defending old habits. And this morning, I want you to stop romanticizing motivation and start respecting systems, because motivation is a spark, but systems are a fire that stays lit, and your mind is the builder of systems. A system is simply a set of decisions you no longer debate every day, like, I work out at this time, I study at this time, I plan my day, I save money, I practice my skill, I get enough sleep, I don't scroll in the morning, I don't break promises to myself. And once these decisions become automatic, life becomes easier. Not because it becomes less demanding, but because you stop wasting mental energy on repeated negotiation. Most people are exhausted not just from work, but from the constant mental debate, the constant should I or shouldn't I. The constant, maybe tomorrow, the constant, I'll do it later, and that mental debate drains you before you even start. So a winning mind simplifies by deciding, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I do it even when I don't feel like it. Because feelings are real, but they are not reliable. And if you build your life on feelings, you will build on sand. You may feel motivated today and unmotivated tomorrow, confident today and insecure tomorrow, but your goals don't care how you feel. Your goals respond to what you do, and what you do is determined by what you've trained your mind to prioritize. And training your mind is not a one-time event. It's daily practice. So let's practice right now with something practical. Choose your thought on purpose. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every thought deserves your agreement, and not every thought deserves to stay in your head. Some thoughts are useful, some thoughts are noise, and some thoughts are poison. Poison thoughts sound like I'm not enough, I always mess up, I can't change, I'm too far behind, it's too late, other people are better, I don't have what it takes. And those thoughts are not facts. They are habits. They are repeated sentences that became familiar. And familiarity can feel like truth, but familiar does not mean true. If you want success, you must become a person who can challenge your own mind, because your mind will try to keep you safe by keeping you small. It will try to protect you from embarrassment by keeping you from trying. It will try to protect you from rejection by keeping you silent. It will try to protect you from failure by keeping you inactive. But that protection is a trap, because you can't protect yourself into a better life. You can only build yourself into one. So today, when your mind offers a limiting thought, answer it with a stronger one. Not fake positivity, but truth. If the mind says I can't, answer I can learn. If the mind says it's too hard, answer hard is what grows me. If the mind says I'm behind, answer I'm starting, and starting changes everything. If the mind says I always fail, answer I'm learning what works, because the goal is not to never have negative thoughts. The goal is to not let negative thoughts drive the car. You may feel fear, but fear rides in the back seat, not in the driver's seat. You may feel doubt, but doubt doesn't get to make decisions. And the moment you start talking to yourself like a leader instead of a critic, your life begins to shift, because leadership is not a title, it's self-management, it's emotional control, it's choosing the next right action even when you don't feel like it. Now let's talk about the mental foundation that makes morning motivation more than just words: clarity. Clarity is a mindset of knowing what matters, because the mind can't focus when it doesn't know the target. A lot of people are busy, but they aren't. Successful because busyness is movement without direction, and direction begins in the mind through clarity. If you wake up without deciding what matters, you will spend your day reacting to what is loudest, and what is loudest is rarely what is most important. So this morning, give your mind a mission, because a mission organizes your day. Ask yourself, what is the one thing I can do today that moves my life forward? Not 10 things, not 50, one thing. Maybe it's working out, maybe it's applying, maybe it's studying, maybe it's practicing a skill, maybe it's making the call, maybe it's finishing the task you've been avoiding, maybe it's planning your finances, maybe it's taking care of your health, maybe it's showing up with excellence at work, because excellence is a mindset too. And once you have that one thing, protect it, because your day will try to steal it from you with distractions, with drama, with comfort, with excuses. But your future is built by what you protect, and protection requires boundaries, and boundaries are mental decisions. I don't scroll right now. I don't waste my mornings. I don't let people pull me into negativity. I don't overthink instead of act. I don't negotiate with my goals, because negotiation is where discipline dies. Now, there is another mental piece that success always requires: belief. Not belief in a fantasy where everything is easy, but belief that your effort matters. Hopelessness is one of the most dangerous mental states, because it makes action feel pointless. And when action feels pointless, you stop trying. And when you stop trying, you guarantee failure. But belief restores action, and action restores confidence. And the simplest way to strengthen belief is to gather evidence through small wins. You don't need to transform your life today. You need to prove to yourself that you can keep a promise to yourself today, because self-trust is built when you do what you said you would do. If you keep promising yourself change and breaking that promise, you train your mind to doubt you, and then every goal feels heavy because deep down you don't believe your own plan. So start small, but start real. Do one thing today that you can finish, because finishing builds identity, and identity builds momentum. And momentum is what many people are missing, not talent. You don't need to be special to succeed. You need to be consistent, because consistency beats intensity. Intensity shows up when you feel like it. Consistency shows up because you decided, and the decision is mental. That's why success begins in the mind. Now, as you move into your day, remember that your mind will face tests, not just tasks. A test might come as a delay, a criticism, a rejection, a mistake, an unexpected bill, a rude person, a problem at work, a family stress, a moment of tiredness. And the question is not whether you will face these things. The question is what story you will attach to them, because the story determines your response. An untrained mind attaches a story of defeat. Here we go again. Of course this happens to me. I knew I couldn't do it, and that story drains you. But a trained mind attaches a story of growth. This is part of the process. This is feedback. This is training. This is temporary. And that story keeps you moving. The event might be the same, but the story changes the outcome, because the story changes your behavior. And if you can learn to control the story, you can control your life more than you think. And one of the strongest stories you can choose is the story of gratitude. Gratitude is not weakness. It's a mental discipline that keeps you from being destroyed by entitlement and bitterness. When you're grateful, you don't waste as much energy complaining, comparing, and resenting. You focus on what you have and what you can do with it. And that focus builds strength. Start your day with gratitude, not because your life is perfect, but because gratitude trains your mind to see resources instead of only problems. And resources are what you build with. You may not have everything you want yet, but you have something. You have time today. You have a mind that can learn. You have a body that can move. You have access to information. You have some relationships. You have some opportunities. And if your mind can see those, it can create progress. Now let's talk about a mindset that separates average from exceptional. Responsibility. Responsibility is not blaming yourself for everything. It is owning what happens next. You didn't choose every circumstance. You didn't choose every challenge, but you choose your response. And your response repeated becomes your character. And character becomes your destiny. A responsible mind stops saying, I'll do it when I feel like it, and starts saying, I'll do it because I'm committed. Because commitment is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. And if you want a simple morning rule, let it be this: no complaining without action. If you complain about your health, move your body. If you complain about your money, track your spending. If you complain about your job, improve your skills. If you complain about your stress, organize your priorities. If you complain about your loneliness, reach out and build connection. Because complaining without action trains helplessness, but action trains power. And power is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. Self-control is one of the highest forms of strength, and it begins in the mind. Now, there's a big reason why morning motivation matters. Your identity is shaped early. The way you start is often the way you continue. If you start your day rushed, distracted, irritated, you will likely carry that into your interactions. But if you start your day with intention, discipline, and calm focus, you create a different energy. And energy matters because it affects how you speak, how you listen, how you work, how you solve problems, and people respond to your energy. Opportunities often come through people, and people are drawn to reliability, positivity, calm strength, and solution-focused attitude. A bad attitude closes doors that talent could have opened, and a great attitude opens doors that talent alone cannot. So take your attitude seriously today. Not as a performance, but as a decision. Choose professionalism even when you're you're emotional. Choose patience even when you're frustrated. Choose excellence even when you're not being watched. Because excellence is not a stage, it's a habit. And habits are mental before they are physical. And as you move through the day, remember this: you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall or rise to the level of your mental training. If your mental training is weak, stress will break you, criticism will derail you, distraction will control you. But if your mental training is strong, stress becomes fuel, criticism becomes information, distraction becomes something you can ignore. And mental training is built in moments like this, in the morning, when you choose what you believe and what you will do. So here's what I want you to commit to, quietly, personally, without needing anyone to clap. Today, you will win the first hour. Win the first hour and you give yourself an advantage. Win the first hour and your mind starts building momentum. Win the first hour with something that makes you proud of yourself: hydration, movement, planning, learning, prayer, reflection, journaling, reading, a focused task. And when you win the first hour, the rest of the day becomes easier because you are no longer trying to recover from a chaotic start. And if your morning is limited, keep it simple. Breathe, choose one priority, and act. Because action is the antidote to anxiety. Anxiety grows when you think without doing, but it shrinks when you do something real. And doing something real begins in the mind with the decision to start. You don't need to see the entire path. You need to take the next step. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be courageous. And courage is not the absence of fear. It is the attitude that says, my future matters more than my comfort. Comfort is a nice place, but nothing grows there. If you want growth, you have to accept discomfort. Because discomfort is the tuition you pay for progress. And today, pay that tuition willingly. Don't wait until life forces you. Choose it. Because when you choose discomfort on purpose, you turn it into training. When life forces discomfort, it feels like punishment. The same effort can be pain or purpose depending on your mindset. So choose purpose. And if you stumble today, because you will sometimes, don't turn a stumble into a story about who you are. Don't let one mistake become an identity. The mind loves to exaggerate. I ruined everything. I always do this, but a trained mind corrects quickly. That was a mistake, not a life sentence. I can adjust. I can return. Returning is a powerful success skill. Winners are not people who never fall off. Winners are people who come back faster. They don't let one bad meal become a bad month. They don't let one missed workout become quitting. They don't let one rejection become silence. They don't let one rough morning become a rough year. They return, and returning is mental strength. So today, be the kind of person who returns. Return to your plan. Return to your values. Return to your focus. And now, I want to close by giving you a sentence to carry like a weapon against doubt and delay. My mind is my starting point. My mind is my training ground. And my mind is my responsibility. Say it again in your own way. My mind is my starting point. My mind is my training ground. And my mind is my responsibility, because nobody can think for you, nobody can choose your attitude for you, nobody can protect your focus for you, nobody can build your discipline for you, and nobody can live your life for you. The world will always have reasons to quit, reasons to complain, reasons to doubt. But you don't have to accept those reasons. You can choose a different narrative, a different response, a different standard. You can decide that today you will act like the person you are becoming, not like the person you used to be. You can decide that your past will be a lesson, not a prison. You can decide that your setbacks will be feedback, not failure. You can decide that you will be grateful and hungry at the same time. You can decide that you will be disciplined even when you don't feel motivated. You can decide that you will be consistent even when results are slow. And if you do that, your life will start changing in ways you can't fully predict. Not because the world suddenly becomes fair, but because you become stronger, clearer, and more focused. And strong, clear, focused people create create success, because success begins in the mind. So this morning, don't just wake up. Don't just survive the day. Don't just react to whatever happens. Take ownership of your mind. Choose your standard. Choose your next step and start building, because the life you want is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is being built today, and it begins with what you decide in your mind right now.